The whisper becomes joyful, only the sound of cicadas reverberated through the woods that surrounded the Duggar family's land on this tranquil summer morning over Tanta Town. Michelle Duggar was making fresh cinnamon buns in the kitchen of the main Duggar residence when she got the call. Powdered sugar fell upon the surface like fluffy snow as her hands froze in midair. Jana's voice wavered with anticipation as she spoke. "Mom, I have some news." Michelle felt her heart skip a beat. Michelle had secretly hoped for Jana's happiness for years, and although Jana had always exuded quiet grace, she could feel the need behind her daughter's calm, strong smile. "I am expecting a child." Before she could say anything, Michelle gasped as her eyes began to well up with tears. "Oh, Jana, thank God." Steve Wissmann's happy proclamation. Stephen Wissmann, meantime, was standing at the edge of their family's greenhouse in Nebraska, surrounded by the aroma of lilies in bloom. "Hey guys, welcome to BuzzReel. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up." Grinning like a child on Christmas morning, he turned to face his father. "She will become a mother," Stephen exclaimed, panting. "I still find it hard to believe." Known for their traditional values and music, the Wissmann family came together to bestow blessings. Stephen's brothers gave him a heartfelt pat on the back as his sisters sung a hymn of thanks in harmony. In his journal that evening, he wrote, "Jana is the most stunning and courageous woman I've ever met. We are ready to welcome a life that amazes me." Jim Bob's unusually quiet silence. Jim Bob Duggar stood by himself on the back porch back in Arkansas. The usually exuberant patriarch was calm for a change as he saw the sun setting behind the trees. He recalled how Jana had never once grumbled while helping to care for her younger siblings, changing diapers, and calming sobs. Now that she had given so much, it was her turn. Michelle joined him with a kind grin as he turned to face her. Jim Bob muttered, his voice stifled with passion. "She's waited so long. She deserves all of this happiness." Michelle gave a nod. "She will make a fantastic mother." Siblings' reaction, happiness, envy, and a bittersweet change. The Duggar siblings' responses ranged from peaceful reflection to ecstasy. With a bag full of baby hand-me-downs, Joanna hurried to Jana's house. "Jana, you're going to be amazing. Half of us have already been raised by you." She gave her a hard hug while laughing. Jinger sent a heartfelt video message while observing from a distance in California. "Jana, you have my utmost admiration. I'm sorry it took so long for other people to see that you would make the best mother. I always knew you would." Josh, who was conspicuously absent from the family group chat, said nothing, which is still a shadow cast over his name following years of controversy. In a mysterious Instagram story, Jessa wrote, "Some things come to those who wait." Fans wondered if it was support or criticism. Others come to those who deserve it. The formal declaration. Jana and Stephen chose not to pursue careers like their siblings did. Their common family YouTube account featured a straightforward video instead of a dazzling People magazine layout. Vintage baby outfits and handcrafted wooden cribs were visible as the camera moved over their modest Arkansas house. Jana, who was dressed simply in a cream dress, put her touch lightly over her tiny but noticeable bump. She said quietly, "We waited until it felt right. And it does now. God's timing isn't always our timing," Stephen continued. "However, it's always flawless." The video concluded with the following words and a black and white ultrasound image. The due date for baby Wissmann is December 2025. The public response, opinions from fans and former followers. Social media took off in a matter of minutes. "Is Jana expecting a child? This is what I've been waiting for my entire life. The girl who reared the Duggars finally has a child of her own. 10 years ago, she deserved this happiness. Well, at least Stephen isn't Jim Bob." Disillusioned by the allegations, former Duggar supporters came out to express their support. Critics of Counting On acknowledged that they felt a soft spot for the stoic oldest daughter, who eventually got her chance at fame. A silent festivity in contrast to previous Duggar baby showers, this one was intimate, sophisticated, and small. Jana's was packed with flowers, a classical guitar, and hand-stitched gifts rather than raucous games and public registries. Michelle read out loud a meaningful letter. "You've always taken care of others, but now God has given you a new life to raise out of love, not obligation." Jana cried. "For the first time in years, I was happy, not because I was tired or had experienced quiet heartbreak. A new phase in Jana Duggar's life. Jana and Stephen spent peaceful evenings reading scripture, cooking, and observing their unborn child's growth beneath her expanding womb as the seasons changed and October began to creep into Arkansas. Once the obedient daughter abandoned, Jana now had her own possession. A kid, a house, a future shaped by her own decisions rather than by her father's wishes. Additionally, in the last scene of this new chapter, Jana whispered as Stephen tenderly placed his palm on her stomach, "I'm at last free." A hallowed evening in December, an uncommon chill permeated the Arkansas pines, making the air in Tontatown acrid with winter. The faint sound of Jana's breathing reverberated through the rooms as Stephen Wissmann stood barefoot in the hallway of their poorly lit house. The time was 2:14 a.m. when a forceful contraction struck. A deep, raw gasp from Jana's lips as she grasped the edge of their handmade oak bed frame and closed her eyes. She had spent decades honing her quiet strength, and this was not it. It was primordial. She owned this. Stephen was by her side in an instant, his voice firm but his hands shaking a little. "We're all right. This is what you're doing. You're doing well." Less than an hour before, the midwife, a longtime acquaintance of the Wissmanns, had shown up. An ancient speaker in the adjacent room was playing him softly. The lights were dim, and lavender oil was burning gently in the corner. There wouldn't be any TLC cameras, hospital paparazzi, or a planned media frenzy around Duggar. Only the holy birth of a new life. Jana's change during labor. Jana persevered through the labor for hours, strong, steady, and relentless. This woman, who had stayed at home while her sisters married young and changed diapers when she was still a child, was now going through something quite unique. She lost the persona of the caregiver, the assistant, and the submissive oldest with each surge of agony. Tonight, she wasn't anyone's second mother. The mother was her. And Jana's guttural yell rattled the windows when the baby crowned shortly before daybreak. A sound containing years of silent yearning, longing, and sacrifice. The point at which everything was different. A newborn girl came into the world at 5:43 a.m., very small, weeping, lovely. Before even seeing the baby's face, Jana threw herself back into the cushions and started crying. Time stopped when the midwife placed her daughter on her chest, still sticky with life. Stephen sobbed silently beside her. Elelliana Grace Wissmann was her given the name. God has answered is what Elelliana means. Responses of the Duggar family to the birth slowly. News spread. Stephen and Jana took their time posting anything on the internet. Rather, they used a single picture of newborn Elelliana's hand curled around Jana's finger to send the Duggar siblings a secret group message. Joanna immediately replied with a series of heart-shaped emojis. Jinger called in tears from California. The word miracle appeared in a short Instagram story that Jessa shared. Later that night, Michelle and Jim Bob showed up with comforting blankets, homemade food, and uncontrollable tears. "She's the answer to more prayers than you know," Michelle said in a whisper as she held Elelliana for the first time. Jim Bob only nodded, feeling uncomfortable and out of place in the quiet, intimate situation. His often blustery demeanor softened. Humbled. "You did good, sweetheart," he replied, planting a kiss on Jana's forehead. Social media responds 3 days later. Jana and Stephen shared a family portrait, with Jana wearing a cream shawl, Elelliana dozing in her arms, and Stephen reverently holding both. It was elegant and calm. Don't use hashtags. No Duggar logo. Only the caption. Elelliana Grace, welcome to the world. Every second of waiting for you was worthwhile. The internet was rocked by the post. Jana's happy ending has finally come. I'm crying. This is something she deserves. Not for anybody else. For herself. The real matriarch at last has a child. Now, this is how you gracefully, privately, and powerfully become a mother. The start of a new family legacy. Something changed in Jana as she recovered and adapted to life as a newborn. She was at last the creator of her own story, free from the Duggar compound and the shadow of her brother's tales. Jana glanced out the frost-covered window late one evening while Stephen sat nearby reading scripture, and Elelliana nursed contentedly. "Do you believe she will mature similarly to me?" she inquired. Stephen softly touched her hand with his outstretched arm. No, he muttered. She will know she was desired as she grows up, not merely anticipated. Jana gave a nod. The quiet in the room was peaceful, not weighty, for the first time in her life. Now, this was her family. Furthermore, Elelliana Grace Wissmann would be raised in the light of freedom, love, and choice rather than under the shadow of 19 kids and counting, celebrity, or fanaticism. The silent revolution has started in the Arkansas hills. Winter gave way to spring, and Jana Wissmann underwent a subtle but noticeable change. Something awakened in Jana, a sense of ownership over her future that she had never really claimed before. The instant Elelliana Grace opened her eyes and grasped her mother's finger for the first time. The woman who once requested permission to enter Target was no longer there. The oldest Duggar daughter, who reared her siblings as her own youth vanished into the cadence of compliance, was no more. A mother stood in her place, unfazed, a silent fire growing behind her eyes. Jana was born for the second time. Furthermore, she refused to bring up her daughter in a society that valued silence and demanded obedience. A novel type of nursery, Michelle's nursery, did not like the one in Jana and Stephen's house. The walls were painted with pictures of woodland creatures, but there were no signs warning of modesty or obedience, no framed Bible verses in gaudy font. Classic children's novels like The Paper Bag Princess and Of Green Gables and Charlotte's Web were arranged on shelves. Stephen had carved a walnut rocking rocker in the middle of the space, and the armrest had Jana's favorite sentence delicately engraved on it. According to Proverbs 31 verse 25, she is dressed with dignity and strength. She can laugh at the days to come. It wasn't ornamental. It was a proclamation. Conflict between Michelle and Jim Bob finding trouble didn't take long. Jana did not recoil when Michelle brought over a box of children's books that were approved by Duggar. Titles that focused on female subservience, gender norms, and obedience to fathers. We won't be using these, she replied quietly after taking one look at the pile. Michelle blinked. But these are what you were raised with, my love. Exactly, Jana interrupted in a composed yet determined tone. And I've been undoing what they taught me for the majority of my adult life. Jim Bob had less self-control. Jana, we uphold biblical principles. It is risky to raise a child contrary to those values. Perplexing. Stephen, who had not often argued with his in-laws, took over. He firmly stated, with all due respect, sir, we're raising Elelliana to be free, not to be confused. The room grew cold. Michelle reached for her drink, her hands shaking. Jim Bob's mouth tensed. However, neither of them spoke again. Jinger makes contact. Elelliana was sleeping on her mother's chest one afternoon when Jana's phone rang, and Jinger made a FaceTime call. Jinger smiled knowingly and remarked, I saw your post about not attending the family conference this year. Someone else said no about time. The sound of Jana's laughter was still new to her own lips. I simply couldn't manage it. I refused to expose my daughter to something that almost broke me. For an hour, they talked about parents, religion, therapy, and how they both still occasionally woke up with rules that no longer applied. Jinger said, I'm proud of you, and hung up. The chain is being broken by you. Elelliana's devotion day. An alternative form of ceremony. Stephen and Jana had a tiny, private ceremony in their backyard in lieu of the customary Duggar-style dedication. No media. Number 100-person guest list. Only Stephen's family, a few chosen Duggar siblings, and close friends. Joanna arrived. Kendra and Joseph also did. Even Jessa arrived in silence by herself and remained at the rear. Jana, wearing a plain muslin blanket, stood in front of the group with Elelliana in her arms. She remained firm even as her voice cracked. I don't claim to be flawless. I don't claim to know everything. However, I pledge to raise her with integrity, love, and the freedom to develop into the person God created her to be. We will not raise her in fear, Stephen said after making his own promise. We won't keep quiet while we raise her. They sang after that. It's not a hymn, not one of their childhood praise songs. However, Stephen composed Little Light, a gentle lullaby, himself. Public reaction to Jana's changed. Those who had earlier been ardent Duggar supporters paid attention. Bloggers discussed the change in tone. Reddit posts with the subject, Jana's free at last, Why did it take so long? Started to gain popularity. Her silent opposition offered hope to former Duggar supporters who had been stung by scandals and extremism. One tweet gained widespread attention. Jana Duggar didn't burn bridges or bash doors to get out of the IBLP. After leaving, she raised her daughter fearlessly. Of all the rebellions, that one is the loudest. Michelle's personal letter. Michelle wrote Jana a handwritten note a month after the dedication. Greetings. Jana, the strongest person was always you. Now that I think about it, perhaps we asked too much of you. Admitting that we might have been mistaken is difficult. However, I'm seeing you grow into the mother I wish I had been. And you have my admiration. Love, Mom. Jana took a while to respond. She merely placed the letter in Elelliana's souvenir box, which is next to the hospital bracelet she wore on that auspicious December morning and the first ultrasound. The new legacy. Jana rocked Elelliana to sleep late one night. Her daughter's gentle breathing matched the creak of the wooden chair in the dimly lighted nursery. She whispered as she gazed down at the young girl in her arms, "Your siblings won't be raised by you. You won't plead for attention. You won't require authorization to dream." Jana understood then that this was more than just a path to motherhood. It was a revolution. Just one kid. Just one woman. One life changed. The surprising invitation. It was a straightforward email. Subject: Women of Grace Conference 2026 Keynote Speaker Invitation from conferenceboard.org/Women of Grace. Jana thought it was an error and almost erased it. She had never been good at public speaking, after all. It was she who was silent, the caregiver, behind the camera, the girl, while others took center stage. However, she was drawn to the following line: "As a woman who grew up in silence and decided to break it with grace and strength, we want to hear your story." Over her shoulder, Stephen read the email. "You ought to do it," he uttered quietly. Jana gave him a blink. "What should I do?" "Share your story, according to your terms." She gazed at the display. 1,000 submissive voices, echoes of years past, warned her to keep silent somewhere within of her. However, a more recent voice was suddenly even louder. Her own. Getting ready for the main event. Nerves and introspection were common during the months before the Women of Grace conference. Stephen provided support and prayer while Jana continued to journal late into the night with Elelliana sleeping next to her. She had no desire for vengeance. She had no desire to destroy her family. She did, however, desire the truth and recovery. And for one voice to say, "You can walk away," to the young ladies who are still confined in silence. "And you'll be all right." In order to help Jana transform her experiences into strength rather than shame, she started meeting with a counselor who was herself a former ATI survivor. Behind the Duggar doors, Jim Bob's anger increases. Jim Bob exploded when word got to the Duggar compound. A speech in public? Before the non-religious media? She will disparage the family. She is rebelling against her background. Michelle used a softer tone as she attempted to soothe him. Perhaps this is how she finds tranquility. Jim Bob snarled, "That's what she's been influenced since she went into that Wissmann household." I anticipated this. He tried calling Jana herself. The phone went to voicemail. Beginning of the Women of Grace conference, there were 400 women waiting in folding chairs in a plain space with high ceilings and hardwood floors. As relics of the lives they had known, some donned blazers, while others wore long skirts and headscarves. There was a noticeable hush when Jana took the stage. Her clothing was light blue. No veil. Nothing fancy. Don't apologize. One picture of infant Elelliana flickered onto the screen behind her. Jana's complete speech snippets. "I grew up in a society that confused quiet with virtue, where my worth was determined by the number of siblings I had, my silent compliance, and my modest attire. However, I discovered something horrifying after I became a mother. I had no idea how to parent from freedom. I was only able to parent out of terror. I decided to unlearn as a result. I made the decision to abandon laws that were penned by persons who claimed to be speaking for God. And I discovered my voice in that magnificent, scary wilderness. I'll say it for my daughter now. For me, as well as for the girl I once was. I'm not resentful. I'm conscious. At first, there was no applause. Only a profound, holy silence. Then thunder. There was a standing ovation in the room. Women wept. Some gave strangers hugs. Others just froze in shock that a Duggar had said the truth. Media explosion and contradictory responses. Media outlets grabbed it up in a matter of hours. BuzzFeed. In a stunning speech, Jana Duggar breaks her silence and rejects fundamentalism. The clip Jana Duggar's public rebirth, from counting on to calling it out, People magazine. The Duggar legacy is shaken by Jana Duggar's empowering speech. Christian conservative blogs, meanwhile, were raging with hatred. Jana is no longer there. When women are permitted to take charge of their homes, this is what occurs. Her parents are ashamed. However, others, thousands of evangelical women and former ATI followers, showed their appreciation by flooding forums and comment sections. I never imagined that a Duggar would actually say that aloud. Family disagreements and unexpected support. Jim Bob gave a tense, succinct family statement. Although we support our daughter's ability to express her opinions, we disagree with how she describes her upbringing. Our family has always aimed to parent in a way that honors the Lord. A few of the siblings remained quiet. However, Jinger released Jana's statement again with the following brief caption: "We were proud of you. You brought us into view." Joanna sent a private message: "Dad is enraged. However, you said what we've all considered. You have my admiration." Many were taken aback when Anna, Josh's wife, posted a sad Instagram video of herself watching the speech. "Perhaps I was in error. Perhaps it's time to awaken as well." The silent period following the storm back in Arkansas. Jana rocked Elelliana while she sat in her crib while the rain pattered softly against the window. Stephen entered with a tea mug in his hand. He said, "People are calling you a hero." "I'm not," Jana said softly. "I'm just revealing the truth at last." Elelliana cooed softly as she stirred in her arms. Jana remarked, almost to herself, "She will never have to unlearn love." And Jana grinned in the silence of that room, without any microphones, cameras, or spotlights. For the sake of the world, no. But for herself, for the first time. If you're looking for more Duggar family exclusive gossip, come back to BuzzReel for all your updates by guys.